Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of What's Brewing with Mobile Cup of Joe. Hey, I'm the Bearded Barista. I'm your host for this evening in what looks to be a very in-depth, very good study of the OnePlus 2 and Motorola events and a little Google Fi tonight. We won't be as fast and we won't fly through so many topics, but we will be able to slow down and discuss these because that's big news. Big news this week, OnePlus 2 event and the Motorola event, so we're going to hit those. And so thank you so much for joining us and letting us be a part of your daily, weekly, monthly routine, however you catch up with us. And if you notice, there is one or two people missing, but we do have almost all of the Brew Crew here. And I'm just going to start left to right as I usually do because that's a little easier for me. And so back from the dead, Fred is our first Brew Crew. Fred, how are you, sir? Catch us up a little bit on what's going on with you the past week or two.
Hey guys, good to be back on after a week off. Things are quiet but good up here. Oh, I have been playing. I received my belated birthday present, which was a SEMA X8C quadcopter, which I've gotten to take out, got up in the air, and even got a few photos and a little bit of video from it, which I've been having fun with. Catching up with you Ace Flyers on that stuff. I'm a week and a part of a day into my Google Project Fi test run, which I'll share a little bit more about as we get further on in the show. And I guess that's about all that's new up here at the moment. Oh, it's my son Forrest's 18th birthday, so as of today I officially no longer have any minor age children. Yes, it's true.
Excellent. That's very good. Yeah, Tony has far surpassed all of us with the aerial photography and video stuff, so we'll get to that in a bit. But so good, Fred, that you've got one. So I've looked at some of your stuff, and I'm excited to see what other footage and stuff. Yours is a lot better than mine, so you should come up with some really good stuff. But Mobile Cup of Joe, the main man himself, how are you, sir? Catch us up.
I'm doing really fantastic. It's awesome to be back on here after like over a month of not being on the show, which I apologize enormously from that. I just had a lot of personal stuff going on that I had to take care of, but it is a lot of fun being back on the show, getting to talk about the OnePlus 2, the Moto X, and Alvie's 8-inch and all that good stuff that I missed for the past month or so. So I'm really looking forward to getting back on here. And as for me, I haven't been doing a whole lot. Just been working at the local theater in my area for my job during the summer. Just upgraded Windows 10 on the computer, which has been a lot of fun so far today. And aside from that, just trying to get back in the swing of things with Mobile Cup of Joe this past week. And we joined Broadband TV, a new network for the YouTube channel. So that'll be a lot of fun, give us a lot of new tools for the YouTube channel for getting thumbnails and tracking our analytics and stuff to kind of take our channel to the next level. So just getting used to how to do these things. If I'm kind of rusty, I apologize for that, but I do have my coffee to hopefully get me through the show tonight and get back with everything.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, it's good to see. We missed you, but hopefully we did okay in your stead. So, Mr. Tony, bringing our spec sheet, Tony, how are you, sir? It's been a long time for you. I haven't been on a show with you in what seems like a year, so how are you? Catch us up a little bit.
I've been doing really well, actually. I've been doing really, really well. I'm still working, obviously, with SWAPA, and have just been... well, I guess with the summer, it's just been hard. You know, we got stuff going on. We live near a pool now, so when the family wants to go out and do something, or when I have a chance to get out to the pool with my family, early on a Friday night or something, some stuff has gotten into the way of the show. Had a few changes recently, so I definitely wanted to be able to make it tonight, because if something changes and I'm not able to make it on the show even as much as I have, I wanted to make sure I got at least one good one in here before anything changes. So, but yeah, other than that, awesome, enjoying the summer. Been out at the pool every single chance that I've had, and I was in a wedding last weekend. That's why I didn't make it to last week's show. I had the dress rehearsal on Friday. It's just been a fantastic summer so far. So here's to a good August before we head into fall.
Oh yeah, dog days of summer. Yeah, it's good to see you. And so yeah, definitely family always comes first. So definitely handle that stuff first. But it is good to see you. So, but yeah, I'm the Bearded Barista. I'm Alvie, and I'll be the host for tonight and trying to keep these guys on topic and on time. But if you are watching or listening later on the podcast or anything, here's a few ways to get in touch with us. But the easiest thing for you to do is hashtag on any socials that take a hashtag MCOJBrew. We do keep an eye on that during the show, and we do keep an eye on it later during the week too. So if you have a question, comment, concern, or rebuttal about anything we're talking about tonight, or just some random question or something, just go ahead and shoot that hashtag MCOJBrew on any of the socials. But you can comment here on the YouTube channel or on the event page, or pretty much just anywhere that you can find us. We're there. We'll catch it. So anyway, thanks for watching, and let's just go and listening, podcast listeners. Let's go ahead and crack into it. The OnePlus 2 is officially unveiled. Tony, what is the OnePlus 2? Tell us all about it. Tell us why we do or don't want it.
The OnePlus 2 is a budget device that OnePlus has recently. No, the OnePlus 2 is a new. Are they even calling it a flagship killer anymore? Because
yeah, the 2016.
Oh, did they actually? Oh, wow, 2016.
It went up a year.
Flagship killer. So they think that 1 gigabyte of RAM in the 64 gigabyte model, by the way, over other things, gives them a whole year leg up on other people.
Also, we won't be using NFC in 2016 too.
Well,
so
obviously not. But I was just reading through the specs, and it turns out that the 16 gigabyte model actually only has 3 gigs of RAM, and the 64 gigabyte has 4 gigs of RAM. I did not hear about that after the announcement. I think that that's ridiculous. But I did own the Life Pure XL, the Blue Life Pure XL, which did have NFC, and for a mid-range flagship device was really I really enjoyed it. It did not have LTE, but it even had NFC. So OnePlus, I'm sure you're getting this from everybody, but what are you doing? No NFC. So basically, here's a rundown of the OnePlus 2. No NFC, no quick charge, no wireless charge, but they do have a fingerprint scanner, and you know how much Android users have all been dying for fingerprint scanners and devices with fingerprint scanners. That's like the only thing we want out of our device, more than to be able to use it as a wallet and to use it. No, I can't even say it with a straight face. And it also, by the way, for you people who are going to be switching over from iPhone, it also has the manual hardware button to turn silent mode on your phone. Another useless feature that Android has been missing that iPhone has had for a long time. I think Artem Rusakovsky, the owner of Android Police, I recently saw something that he was talking about, which basically said, what happens if you change the device to silent mode in the software and you don't change the switch? Does the switch just change? Oh, yeah. Does the switch just automatically redefine those positions? Anyway, a lot of crazy stuff going on surrounding OnePlus. A lot of people, pretty much everyone that I follow on Google Plus, is extremely disappointed with what they're seeing with OnePlus 2. And somehow OnePlus still has over 1 million people waiting on the waiting list for, get this, invites.
I understand why they had to go for the invite system again, but it's just really irritating that we're going to deal with it again. I understand the reason behind it, and I do know that they're still a small company, so they have to partition the devices in some manner, but it's still aggravating. They're putting these like crazy contests and everything just to get an invite to buy the phone.
I don't. You see, it's one thing when you're in, like the OnePlus 2, the OnePlus 1, was an actual flagship killer. The OnePlus 1 had awesome specs for what was available, and the price was unbeatable. And they were consistent. The only thing you had to choose from was the type of the color back and the amount of storage you wanted. There's no like difference in RAM. I hate that when companies do different models with different amounts of RAM. If it's going to have the same name, it needs to have the same specs.
Mm-hmm. Well, plus two, like now, because when the OnePlus 1 came out, I mean, if you want to consider it a budget, like a higher end affordable smartphone, the landscape was completely different because it was either that or basically kind of crappy, cheap devices from ZTE or LG or something. But now you look at the Asus Zenfone, which has been kicking butt. You've got the Alcatel One Touch Idol 3 that's out, and then you've got the Moto G 3rd generation, which is kind of the lower of the bunch. But the Zenfone 2 and the Idol 3 have been just like storming the affordable flagship devices. And I actually owned an Idol 3 for 2 weeks maybe before I got my Nexus 6, and for $250 that was a fantastic device. And OnePlus is now in a environment now where smartphones for that sub $300, sub $400 price range is a lot different. So I don't think they made enough changes in here. Like you said, granted you have 4 gigabytes of RAM, but you still have a 1080p display, which isn't super impressive, especially when you look at something such as the Moto X Pure Edition, which we'll talk about later, which is rocking a QHD display. And then just like you said too earlier, the things are missing: NFC, wireless charging, quick charging. That's a lot of things to be missing from a device you're calling a flagship killer for next year. So,
well, the one thing that I can say is that with that battery and that they're sticking with the 1080p display, which I'll back that. I mean, I really like the Quad HD display on my Nexus. It's nice, but I wouldn't sacrifice the battery to keep it. I would totally go back down to a 1080 if I could get even 50% more battery life on my Nexus. I would do that. And OnePlus One, if nothing else, the battery life was on point. So if the battery life's going to be that good on this one, then maybe this could be the entry-level smartphone for a friend who is going to have no idea or care what NFC is or how to use it. But at the same time, they're never going to get it because we've got the invite system, and we already saw most normal people who weren't in press, who weren't part of the press, I should say, who got their OnePlus Ones. It was obsoleted by the Snapdragon 805 by the time that they got it. So we see them making the same mistakes with this device, only this time it's a device that I feel they can't afford to make it with, because there's 2 reasons that you should buy this phone if you absolutely want these 2 things in a phone, and that's USB-C and 4 gigabytes of RAM. Those are the only 2 reasons I can think to say, yeah, I guess buy the OnePlus One. Under no circumstances would I recommend it to anyone else, because you've got such a better group of devices coming out at a decent price range, within $100 of this device coming out, and you're actually going to be able to go into a store and buy them if you want, or order them on Amazon. So OnePlus, sorry, thumbs down, final judgment.
Well, another thing too. You go ahead, Alvie.
Well, and that's what I'm seeing across the board on all the socials. Like, no one is excited about this. I mean, okay, fine, they've got a number that says they have 1 million people wanting an invite. For whatever, okay, fine, I can go click that I want to invite. That means absolutely nothing. They're an unproven company, so it's really tough to put out a flagship killer for next year at this price point with the specs as low as it is. I mean, barely any of these are even pushing next year's specs at all. I mean, 4 gigabytes of RAM, yeah, that will do it. Yeah. And then everything else is subpar. I mean, you're looking. If I take the Moto X 2nd Gen, I can probably match most of this stuff up, and it'll either look or perform just as well. Yeah. They're unproven. Who's the market for? Like last year, who the OnePlus One was for. Like it was spearheaded right at this certain demographic. This year, it's like this shotgun approach, and there's no way to succeed with that.
I'm guessing that a lot of the reason that they have as many invites and on the waiting list, as many people on the waiting list for that as they do, is a lot of people who are going to want to get their invite and sell it, because a lot of people did that with the OnePlus One invites.
Yep.
Well, also too, I mean, you've got this software situation where, it's fair to admit that the reason, or at least part of the reason I bought my OnePlus One was the draw that you had CyanogenMod out of the box with it, but with this you've got Oxygen OS, which has a couple additional features and customization tweaks that stock Android doesn't. But if you compare it to stock Android, aside from SwiftKey being installed by default and the ability to change app permissions and being able to change your settings from a light theme to a dark theme, there's not a whole lot of additional features in there. So you're essentially looking at taking one of the draws for some users that bought the OnePlus One completely away from it. Because for me personally, I got the OnePlus One mainly for the price because it was so affordable, and being a high school student last year and still this year, I don't have a lot of extra cash to put on phones. But also being able to have a really powerful ROM out of the box with a phone was really impressive, and it was the first phone we really saw, aside from that giant 7-inch phone that Oppo kicked out. It was the first one that ran CyanogenMod, and that was a huge selling point for us kind of hardcore Android techies, but I just don't see a lot of draw to the software on this. And yes, it's stock Android, but why would I go for something like that that's kind of similar to stock Android, where I can go for a Nexus 6 or a Moto X Pure Edition, where it is stock Android, and it's probably going to get upgraded to Android M a hell of a lot faster when it comes out to be released.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Fred, you're kind of quiet over there. What are your thoughts on the OnePlus 2?
Well, I'd love to get to play with a phone with 4 gigabytes of RAM. It's worthy. It's Tony worthy, and certainly, I've still got a PC that's an occasional service here with only 3 gigabytes of RAM. So I'd love to see that on a phone, but I never got to play with the OnePlus One, so I don't really have a base of comparison here. It doesn't really seem, if they're planning on this as being next year's flagship phone, I think they're not setting their sights high enough in terms of what else is going to be out between now and then. But who knows what the actual finished product's going to turn out to be, though.
Yeah.
In terms of how it actually runs, there's more to a phone than the specs.
This is true. I mean, but I just, with what I'm seeing here, especially with what we're going to talk about here in just a moment with the Motorola stuff, I just can't see. I don't know. I can't see.
I think they must have had low expectations of what they were going to have to compete against.
Yeah. Well, and it's like what you guys were saying earlier. Like, so much has changed this past year in flagship budget, pricing, specs, and all that kind of stuff. And it's like they're coming at 2016 with a 2014 philosophy, and they're just going to get like blown away. That it can't work. So, all right, that's enough OnePlus 2. I think we all can agree it ain't happening. Let's talk Motorola. This is a little more exciting. There's a bunch of phones to talk about and a bunch of excitement here on the Brew Crew, and a bunch of excitement pretty much in the tech world in general about this new Motorola stuff. So, Joe, are you ready to discuss some Moto G, Moto X, and whatnot?
I am. I just got to bring my Google Doc back up because I am trying to figure out Windows 10 and closed out my tab for Chrome, but I am good to go now. So yeah, Motorola had a huge event to talk about the new Moto G and the Moto X's earlier this week. I believe it was the 28th or the 29th, something like that. So Motorola had their event. I'll go ahead and get the screen share up real quick to talk about these devices. We'll hit up the Moto G first, just since that's kind of the less exciting of the bunch here. The new Moto G, the 3rd generation, is obviously the successor to last year's Moto G. Still $179 starting price point right there, which is still $180. It's a pretty fair price, for a budget phone that what we're getting here. In regards to some of the specifications that we're getting, we do have a 13 megapixel rear-facing camera, which Motorola did say is actually they're reusing the same camera sensor from the Nexus 6, but they are tweaking it to improve it a little bit, which the Nexus 6 has a pretty decent camera. It's not my favorite camera by any means I've used on a phone before, but it is reliable enough if you want to snap a picture and if you're using it in good lighting conditions. Along with that, you have a 5 megapixel selfie camera, 5-inch HD display, which is only a 720p resolution, which for a 5-inch display is okay. I mean, you're going to be able to see some pixelation if you get too close to it, but for that small of a screen size, it's going to be doable. 4G LTE bands, we've got a 2,470 milliamp hour battery, which Motorola is saying will last to a full day of use, but that is a relatively small size. Comes in 8 or 16 gigabytes of storage options, but you do have a micro SD card slot to expand it up to an additional 32 gigabytes, which is a really awesome inclusion, especially for a lower budget device like this. But the biggest kicker for this is that Motorola is actually bringing it to Moto Maker, so you'll still be able to buy those kind of snap-on backs that were with the Moto G last year, but you can go on Moto Maker now, and you can actually buy this thing today from both Motorola's site and Amazon.com, and I believe Best Buy as well. You can go on there, you can choose the front color, just like you can with the Moto X in prior years. The front color, you can choose a back color for it. The back on here does have kind of a rubbery, kind of texturized feel to it to make it a little bit more durable. You can choose your accent color for the back camera thing right there to really make it yours. You can add shells to it, engrave your name. So Motorola is adding some nice additions with this. And one thing I do want to point out is this is again something OnePlus is doing that's really aggravating. The 8 gigabyte model comes with 1 gigabyte of RAM, but the 16 gigabyte model for $40 more is the one with 2 gigabytes of RAM. So you have to keep that in mind, and I really find that especially irritating with the Moto G, which is Motorola's their most highest selling phone in company history, but it's targeted a lot towards kind of novice smartphone users. For a lot of people, the Moto G was their first smartphone they ever used, just because the entry point was so low and because it was just kind of seen as that nice entry phone to use if you have someone that's coming to Android for the first time or just for a smartphone for the first time. So I think that's going to be quite a bit confusing because the difference between 1 and 2 gigabytes of RAM is going to be pretty noticeable if you're doing any multitasking whatsoever. And $180, it's cheaper than the One Touch Idol 3, and the Asus Zenfone 2, but I just don't think Motorola put enough specifications or enough higher-end specifications in this device, because for $10 more or $50 more, depending on what device you're looking at between the Zenfone and the Idol 3, you're just getting more bang for your buck with those phones nowadays. And granted, Motorola kind of built that market of you don't have to spend $700 for a phone that functions well, but I just think they're playing it too safe and not seeing how far can we push this limit. They're kind of staying really similar to what they started with the first-gen Moto G, and we've just seen the market kind of expand for you can get more specifications for a smaller dollar price, and it just feels like this is maybe a budget device we would have seen like early 2015. So it's interesting, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Think it's enough to talk about, or enough of a change from the second-gen Moto G, or is it kind of not super interesting, especially from the other budget devices we've seen so far?
I don't think you can go wrong with the Moto G. The first couple were obviously great. The original one and then the 2014, yeah. They were really really good. As you said, the best selling device that Motorola has, and the price point you can't beat. I suggested it to several friends and family members. No one actually purchased one. I don't know why. Probably because you have to order it online and you can't get it directly. You couldn't get it directly from T-Mobile. But as far as I'm still annoyed with the difference in RAMs. This has annoyed me ever since seeing like devices like the Galaxy S3 and the Galaxy S3 Mini, the Galaxy S4 and the Galaxy S4 Mini. Don't call it a Galaxy S4. Even if you're saying Mini, it's a smaller screen, but don't call it the same device. Don't call it a Moto G. Call it a Moto G Lite. Do what Samsung does. Call it a Lite if you really have to name it the same thing, but don't call it the same device when it's not going to perform the same way. Now, the difference between 3 gigs of RAM and 4 gigs of RAM I was blowing out of proportion for OnePlus One, because honestly, at this point, at least where we are right now with Android, you're probably not going to notice a difference between 3 and 4 gigs of RAM. But between 1 and 2, you're right, you will notice a difference, because anyone who's used a 1 gig device for review extensively, there will be a point during that review period where it's going to tell you you're out of memory and you need to close some apps. So you shouldn't be, if you shouldn't be doing that, because then you say you are using the 16 gigabyte model, and someone says what if I want one, and you're raving about it, and then they buy the one with 1 gig, and then they get it, and they're thinking, well, this sucks. It keeps telling me I close apps. Why does it keep doing that? That's annoying to me. But that's my main thought on the issue. They made a mistake there, but really, as far as the Moto G line goes, I think that's really the only mistake they made, and it's going to sell just as well as it always has.
I don't think that they're marketing, that style of naming convention. I don't think that they're marketing at the type of consumer like you are, Tony, who's spec conscious. I think that they're marketing at people who are form factor conscious and social interaction conscious. Yeah. If you have a phone that looks like a Moto G, if it looks like a Galaxy S5, you can call it a Galaxy S5. It may be the light version or the mini version or the low RAM version or the weaker CPU version, but it looks and smells like the real device on the street, and to some people that's what matters.
Yeah. Yeah, but it originally started to bother me when I was looking at the Galaxy S, I think 4 Mini, because or maybe it was the Galaxy S3 Mini, I don't remember. But I was looking at it and I was thinking, oh, that would be kind of nice because these phones are getting kind of big now, and I was still on the boat of I don't want to get a big device, and maybe having a slightly smaller device would be nice. And I realized, oh, this thing has less RAM and a lower end CPU. Why would I go down?
To me, the whole this is like deal breaker for me on this. The 8 gigabytes of storage and 1 gigabyte of RAM, or 16 versus 2, and then changing your price point. And here's why. Moto G has built itself as this brand marketed to people that are not going to buy a new phone every 6 months. That's what we do. The people that buy a Moto G don't. They want to buy a phone and use it to the damn thing just falls apart or cracks and it's done. You're not going to be able to use a 1 gigabyte with 8 gigs or 1 gig of RAM and 8 gigabytes of storage next year. It's just impossible. On Android, the way it is and the way the apps are built and how poorly some of the bad apps are built, there's no way that the people that buy it are going to be able to use. I mean, Facebook will destroy a phone already a decent phone. So you put Facebook, which everybody's going to put, that's going to buy one of these on a 1 gigabyte of RAM phone next year, you can forget it. And everybody's just going to be mad.
Yeah.
So the Moto G 4th generation will not sell because the 3 was so bad if everybody buys this one gigabyte. Even 2 gig is kind of low on it. If they had done a 2 gigabyte RAM at that price point, but you're talking about $40 more, and is it 30 or 40?
$40.
$40 more, so it's 220 we're pushing. For $220, what type of phone do you think? Not a Moto G budget line that's going to like barely crash once 2016 summer hits. You're thinking of like, man, I can recommend something so much better for 230, 250 kind of.
Well, yeah, I mean, like as mentioned so many times earlier, the Idol 3, that's $250, so $30 more, you're getting a 5.5-inch 1080p display, front-facing, stereo speakers, a Snapdragon 615 processor, 600, something like that. So still better than the 410 that's on the Moto G. You can just do so much better for $220 for the Moto G, which is what I would recommend if I was going to recommend it, just because you really do need at least 2 gigs of RAM. And 8 gigs of storage on any device is ridiculous, because by the time you get it done installing stuff, you've got maybe 4 gigs or less to actually use for your stuff. Even 16 for myself. Granted, I have a lot of apps on my phone, but on my Moto X, I ran out of storage within 5 months, and that thing was 16 gigs of storage. So you do have SD card available there, but yeah, just for $220, if you're pushing that price limit, you can just do a lot better for maybe $30 more for $250 or something.
Yeah, exactly, and get just so much more that will last that type of consumer so much longer. But I don't want to beat the Moto G to death because it's a decent phone at a decent price, and we'll move on because I do want to talk about the Moto X. So let's talk about probably everybody's like geeking out phone because this thing looks really sharp and everything looks just perfect for it. So tell us about the Moto X Pure Edition and all. Really, well, there's 2 or 3 editions, aren't there?
Well, I'll get into that in a second. Tony, did you want to say something before we get into the Moto X?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, yes, I did. I was just going to say that the problem that we have with the Moto X style and that price point is that people who are looking for devices at that price point, like I have a lot of family members like this, are so concerned with money because they still don't realize that a phone is like a bed, in my opinion. They still don't realize that the amount you use it and the way it improves your quality of life is significant enough that if you rely on your smartphone for directions, for what to last you through the day on battery, and you're going to use it a lot, you're going to text message, you're going to look things up online all day, you should pour a little bit, even a little bit more money, because like you guys said, you can get a decent. If you have $300 to play with, you can go on Swappa or find one of these devices like the OneTouch Alcatel OneTouch Idol 3. And now, actually, this is what I wanted to say. Yes, sorry, this is what I wanted to say. I just read an Android Central article. Go to AndroidCentral.com, find it. The Alcatel OneTouch Idol 3 is currently on sale on Amazon for $300, and it comes with a OneTouch watch. That's $150. Wow. So it's $50 more than it currently is on Amazon for just the phone. But for that extra $50, you get the OneTouch watch, which is valued at $149. So check that out. Android Central, giving them credit. Go check them out. Give them clicks, and they have links to the Amazon page in their article too. But yeah, those people, they're so concerned with money that they're going to get the lower end, and that's where they really fall into the trap that Alvie was mentioning, that they're going to get a device that's not going to last them if they get 1 gigabyte of RAM.
Exactly. Okay, well, going into the Moto X stuff, before I get into the specs and everything for the new Moto X, I'm gonna clarify, because there was a bit of confusion because Motorola announced 3 different devices, but in the States we're only getting 1 of them. So for the international devices they announced, I'll go ahead and screen share this so you can see what I'm talking about here. The Moto X style is the flagship that Motorola announced. This is the Moto X 3rd generation, the successor to last year's Moto X. This is the same phone we're getting in the States as the Moto X Pure Edition. Now, the 3rd phone Motorola announced is called the Moto X Play. This is never coming to the States. It has basically the same specs, except you have a smaller display, lower resolution display, and a larger battery. Would have liked to see this thing come to the States because we're talking a 3600 milliamp hour unit with a 1080p 5.5-inch display. So I would have been interested in it. It's going to cost about $100 less than the Moto X style. but we will not be seeing that come to the States at any time at all. So Moto X Pure Edition is what we're looking at here in the United States of America. And I've got to say, this is one sexy looking device. I've been a fan and owner of the first gen Moto X and the second gen Moto X, and this thing really looks like a true beast. For some quick specifications, we have a 5.7-inch Quad HD display, which is a pretty large size. The Nexus 6 was 5.9-inch, so not quite as monstrous as the Nexus 6 was, but still pretty large. Definitely going to be a two-handed device. We have got turbo power, there are kind of quick charge technology in there, which Motorola is actually touting to be even more faster than standard Qualcomm quick charge. For the camera, Motorola is making a huge deal about this. 21 megapixel camera on the back with an f2.0 aperture, with a 5 megapixel selfie camera, also with an f2.0 aperture, with a front-facing flash. So if you want to blind yourself while taking your selfies in your low-light situations, you do have that option there. And again, we still have the Moto Maker returning for the Moto X. And some other specs, in case you're interested, for our spec heads out there. 3 gigabytes of RAM, so respectable. Comes in 16, 32, or 64 gigabytes of storage, with a very nice addition of micro SD card support up to a whopping 128 gigabytes. On the display, we've gone from a Super AMOLED panel to a TFT LCD, which there's been kind of a hubbub about. Personally, I do like the look of Super AMOLED, but I was talking, I think it was Chuck in our chat today, and he made the point that with Android M and Android Lollipop in general, having more white and brighter colors, that should be actually more power friendly on the battery with a TFT LCD display. So it looks like a nice device. We do have, again, quick charging, wireless charging, NFC on there, stuff the OnePlus is lacking. And you'll still have the options for leather by Horween, the wood options, and the ruggedized, kind of rubbery textured plastic options in the back too, all starting for $399 for the 16 gigabyte model coming in fall 2015. No word as of yet as how much the additional storage options will cost you, but personally for me, I would, if I got this, I'd probably up for at least a 32 gigabyte variant. But it looks like a beautiful phone. $400 is a pretty solid starting point, especially if you consider something the Galaxy S6, starting at least $600. For $200 less, you're getting basically a high-end flagship device. My only reservations are with the battery and the camera, because if you've ever owned a Motorola phone in the past couple of years, you do know that those are their two weaker points for a smartphone. But essentially, we're kind of looking at a Nexus 6 too. I love this device here, and we're basically looking at 0.2 of an inch smaller display, but with higher specs all around. And the Nexus 6 has been one of my favorite phones I've owned. So being a Motorola fan and being a Nexus 6 fan, this is kind of my dream device right here. So what are your guys' thoughts on it so far?
Well, my first thing is you actually had it backwards with the Pure Edition and the style. The style is what will be coming to U.S. carriers, so you'll be able to go to Verizon and purchase the style. The Pure Edition is exactly the same hardware. I mean, exactly the same, except you will not have the carrier bloatware, and you will be able to purchase it through Moto Maker online. So they're both in the States. The Pure Edition will probably sell globally, and then the style is what will sell from your carriers. But again, the only carriers that will probably sell the Moto X outright, I'm guessing, are going to be Verizon and AT&T, or maybe Sprint. But I would guess probably Verizon, AT&T. I know that T-Mobile hasn't carried the Moto X ever, and you just buy the one because Motorola was one of the first manufacturers, I keep wanting to say carriers, I'm sorry, one of the first manufacturers to make an unlocked edition available for the U.S. on their site and say, hey, just go buy it if you want to use it on T-Mobile, because you're going to have to pay for the whole thing outright anyway. So that's the first thing. The second thing, if the camera delivers, then I would actually contemplate switching for the Nexus 6, because I know the Nexuses keep their value. So I know I would be able to pay for the whole thing from selling the Nexus 6 most likely. But as far I'm so in love with the size of the Nexus 6 now, I don't know if I would even want to give up those 0.2 of an inch, as I said before the show. Those are my main thoughts on it, though.
Well, all right. So here's my thing. So at $400, I can't see carriers carrying the $400 version. Like, I can see Verizon rebranding it as like a Droid phone and doing something else so they can get it up to 600. Because you're looking $15 a month on an installment plan. What is that going to be on the contract through the people that do contracts? You can't go more than $100 on a $400 phone. You do a $200 contract, and everybody's just going to like, we'll just go buy the phone somewhere else. So,
right. Well,
go ahead.
I think I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just think that Motorola for the Moto X and even for the Moto G, if you go to Motorola's, I'll even screen share it real quick here so you can see it. If you just go to Motorola's website, I mean, the homepage right now is for the Moto G just because that's their highest selling device. But if you go to phones and go to Moto smartphones, if you go to Moto X right now, it still just takes you to the second-gen Moto X. And if you go to Moto X Pure Edition, there's no option for the Moto X style. So I think Motorola is really wanting people to buy this unlocked because they're listing it directly on Amazon. They're listing it on Best Buy for the Moto X Pure Edition, the unlocked device. And they're going to have it being sold through Moto Maker on their site. So, yeah, they are going to put it on carriers, but I really think the way they've been touting it and the way they talked about it at their press conference, I really think they're going to try to push people to buy the Pure Edition as much as they possibly can with this thing.
Yeah, I agree. That's exactly what I was going to say. Like, there's that kind of phone can't succeed in a carrier type environment. That's unlocked people bringing it over, which that's kind of in the States at least. That's breaking some big ground for a flagship type thing. Plenty of people like us and the people that watch and listen to this show do that already, but not a lot of people are really like, especially for the big phone, the big deal, are doing that yet. So is Motorola, betting a lot on this to succeed and all that? Yeah, I think they are. I think we as people, reviewers and the media and all that kind of stuff, we need to push this better. Because I think it's kind of like genre or a paradigm shift here in the States, at least, for doing that. And I think that's where Motorola's heading with it. That was the point I was trying to make. But you said it much more eloquently.
You know that the Motorola and the manufacturers and probably even the carriers are banking on the market evolving as we rely more on our smartphones. So as millennials become the account holders, and they, most millennials are always going to buy the highest end. You see them walking around, even if they aren't techies, they still have the new Galaxy, they still have the new iPhone, they have the highest end device available because that's what they know they need, because they know how important it is, where very few people who are even 10, 15, 20 years older than millennials right now care that much. They're just like, okay, either I've been using a smartphone for a long time for my job, but it's the one they gave me, or I don't really want to have a smartphone, but I need one because I, chat with my kids, video chat or whatever. So, but the main thing is, as far as to address your carrier question, they've been doing this forever, man. Look at the Nexus 6 on Verizon Wireless right now, $599 for full price. Full price Nexus 6, $599. Amazon, Google Play, and pretty much everywhere else, $499. They're adding $100 to the price of a smartphone, which does not change at all. It's the exact same device. It just has the Verizon symbol on the back. Now you can even activate. I think now you can even activate the unlocked versions on Verizon without having to have a pre-activated SIM card to put in it. So I'm sure Verizon and AT&T will just do the same thing they've been doing and jack up the price. Say this is the MSRP for our model, even though they're all the same model.
And you may be right, but I mean, I think we're kind of all dancing around it. Like that business model won't work anymore.
No, I hope
for lack
not.
of a better term.
Yeah.
All right, but speaking of Nexus 6, and we're kind of pushing on time, so let me move through the Motorola because I do want to get to the Google Fi stuff. Fred is prepared, and he has been working on some Google Fi stuff. He's got the Nexus 6. Speaking of Nexuses and larger phones and two-hand phones and all that kind of stuff. So, Fred, tell us a little bit about your experience with Google Fi.
All right. Well, it's still. I have to say the jury is still out. I'm about a week into my test of Project Fi. I'm in the right zone. Was accepted. Got my invitation, and got the welcome package. And let me just say, for starters, we've talked about this off air. But for people who are tuning in or picking up on this on the archive or the podcast, if you qualify for Project Fi and you own a Nexus 6. It's worth it to sign up for a month just to get the welcome package, which consists of a really nice battery pack, portable charger, case, which I do not have on now because I'm playing with another device that somebody gave me at CE Week, which is a little grip piece here. and a decent pair of earphones. So even if you just take it for a month and cancel, the welcome package is nice. But the other thing that you get, of course, is the SIM card. If you already own a Nexus 6, you get the SIM card to put your phone on Project Fi. And for me, because I was already on a current version of Android Lollipop, I basically just had to pop in the SIM card, update Messenger, actually, which is the default messaging application, and install the Project Fi app, which gets you online, and a reboot basically got me on. Service has been, so far, at least as good as I've been getting on T-Mobile. I'm just gradually working my way into this, following the user community on Google+, and I've just actually learned and just installed today an app which is a third-party app called Signal Check, which people on Project Fi seem to like because it lets you know where your signal is coming from as you go moving around. And for those who are not hip to what's going on with Project Fi and what it's all about, it's Google's MVNO. It is a multi-carrier service, and what they're basically doing is using T-Mobile's towers. They're using Sprint's towers. They don't have towers of their own, and then they're using whatever available public Wi-Fi you can get. So one of the interesting things here is to track what kind of service you get and how it transitions from one carrier to another. And I don't really have enough data on that yet. As I said, I just installed this app today, and almost everywhere I've looked, I either had T-Mobile or no signal whatsoever when I was in a dead zone. So hopefully I'll have more to report on that next week. I did yesterday experience for the first time the coveted key, and for those who don't know what this is, it refers to getting onto what Google considered to be trusted public Wi-Fi networks. And when they say public Wi-Fi networks, this is not going to be the Wi-Fi that you get, say, at I don't know where it would be. You know, probably not Starbucks or someplace where you have to actually go and sign in. These would be true public Wi-Fi that don't take logging in. And it's kind of interesting. What they say is what you get, and I don't have it here, and I didn't screen capture it, but what you get is, oh, here it is in the screen share. There is the key, and if you were to look down in your settings at that point, you would get a little message that says this connection or this network may be monitored. So presumably what Google tells us is that you're connecting on public Wi-Fi, but they protect your privacy and the integrity of your signal and your data and your communications by running a VPN through these public Wi-Fi networks, and therefore you're going through their VPN. So basically we've got a little extra privacy concern here. People don't seem to be too worried about it, but there's certainly the possibility that that your data is going through and potentially being monitored by Google. Now, interestingly, the one time that I was driving and looked over at the phone and noticed that I had the key, I was driving basically through a residential neighborhood, and when I looked at my Wi-Fi settings, the network that I was on was just called Linksys. So I'm inferring that I was on somebody's home network who did not have it password protected. So that gets kind of interesting. Google is basically burrowing their VPN through public networks and wherever else you can find where you can find Wi-Fi, which could be somebody's home network, and it's reminiscent of, I guess, early days of pocket PCs and other devices that only ran on Wi-Fi when people would do, salesmen on the road and such would do what they called war driving, which was just driving around from one neighborhood to another until you found some place with open Wi-Fi, which 10 years ago or more was pretty common before people got hip to needing to protect their home networks. But anyway, Project Fi, jury is still out. I'll have more certainly to talk about next week. It's running well. I have not had dropped calls. A couple little quirks with Hangouts picking up calls on my computer instead of the phone answering, and I'm still tweaking settings as to where the calls are being routed and so on. But that's basically where I'm at now. I don't know if anybody has any questions, but I'll certainly have a little more to report next week.
Well, it definitely sounds really similar to Republic Wireless in the same way that they're hitting Sprint's towers, open Wi-Fi, and all that kind of stuff. Has anybody tried swapping the SIM card out, like after you activate it on the Nexus 6, put it in something else? Like, is it that easy, or is there like other things involved?
I don't think that you could do that unless you know for a fact it's a device that runs on both Sprint and that will run on both Sprint and T-Mobile. Otherwise, you'd just be effectively using T-Mobile and paying Google for it.
I gotcha. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And I'm guessing it probably wouldn't know how to do it, even though it was trying to use T-Mobile. I'm guessing it would still just say, "This doesn't work. You know, radio's missing, not going to work." And probably wouldn't work even if it had all the radios, just because it's designed specifically for the Nexus 6. I don't even know if you could get the Fi app on another device.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, of course, there's always a way, but yeah.
That's a good point. I'm not sure if the Fi app itself will install on any device. They do sometimes restrict what you can see in the Play Store and what you can install. But yeah, I guess that's really the point, is that we're talking about an LTE network, an open network, and a CDMA network, which would be Sprint. Yeah. And there aren't too many phones that are going to be compatible with both.
Yeah, true. Now, have we heard of any? What's the next step for Fi? Like, are they opening it up to new phones? Is this going to be dead in the water? Do we know? Have they said anything?
I haven't heard it yet, but there is suspicions and murmurings about the upcoming Moto X, since apparently that's going to be the same phone, which will be compatible with, they say, all the carriers.
Fair enough. Good. Well, yeah, good stuff. Thanks for sharing all that stuff, Fred. And just a reminder for anybody listening.
Not too much yet, but hopefully I'll have some more data next week.
Yeah, absolutely. For anybody listening or watching later, if you have a question for Fred, specifically on Project Fi, #MCOJBrew, or just leave a comment down below, and we'll check that out and make sure he gets it and gets back to you on that. So Fred is our resident Fi connoisseur, I guess we'll say. But yeah, we'll call it that. But yeah. That does finish our show. We didn't get to Windows 10, so quick, brief little thing on that. Windows 10 is available to download for everybody, and I would highly recommend it. I've used it for a little bit. Joe's used it. It's great. It's wonderful.
It is fantastic, and also I just like to point out that I am so glad that I press the start button. I just get this little thing right here.
Yeah.
It's so nice.
Yeah, a little quick overview there. Yeah, Cortana's in there. Internet Explorer is gone. It's just rebranded as another blue E.
Edge. Fancier E. Yeah. So I've only had it on my computer. I've only messed with it for maybe a solid hour so far. So I don't have a lot to say about it. But from what I've seen so far, it's been welcome change from Windows 8.
Well, Joe, how's it running, and how much RAM do you have on the machine that you installed it on?
I have 2 sticks of 4 gigs of RAM, so 8 gigs total. And it's been, at first it was a little slow, like I'd click something, it'd be like maybe a 3-second delay before something would happen. But after it went through the growing pains, like I've been running it on here tonight after I rebooted it once, and it's been running flawlessly. Like everything I click is popping up just like it should. Animations are nice and smooth. Actually, Chrome, and all, like, just my email clients and everything seem to be running a lot faster than they were in Windows 8 too. So, so far, like I said, after a reboot, it's been running beautifully so far. But then again, I've got a pretty, beefy rig, because I got it for I have do all my video editing and stuff in there, so I'd have lots of RAM, like a high-end processor. But yeah, animations are beautiful, no lag. It's been really, really snappy and noticeably faster than Windows 8.
Yeah, I've had the same experience, like no issues in it and anything. And it's weird, like it's I don't even know a good adjective for it, but like instantly you don't regret upgrading. That's a really terrible grammatical way to say that.
Yeah, that's something I never experienced with Windows. Windows was always an ordeal to upgrade from my first major upgrade, which was from Windows 3 to Windows 95, which really was a big one. But in the time that I spent with Macs, upgrading Mac OS was always a relief. It always, without having to upgrade your hardware, upgrading from whatever it would have been, OS 10.1 to 10.2 would always seem to run better than the previous iteration.
Yeah.
So it's, Windows always seemed to require new hardware, more RAM, faster CPU.
Which is kind of what I was getting at. I was like, I don't know a good way to say that other than not regrettable, because if you've ever upgraded Windows at all, even when recent Windows 8 to 8.1 was just like a pain in the butt just to do.
Well, I haven't done 8 yet. My laptop, which I'm using right now, is still on 7, which I've been happy with, and I only really ran 8, other than on Windows Phone. I only really ran 8 when it was a beta in a virtual machine, and it wasn't good. It was not ready. It was a beta. It wasn't ready for prime time, and it couldn't run at all on the 2 gigs of RAM or whatever I could assign to the virtual machine. But I'm sitting here with 8 gigs of RAM, and I've been a little bit holding off because most of the people I've talked to that are singing the praises of Windows 10 are telling me that they're running at 16 gigs of RAM and such, and I'm a little hesitant as to whether it's going to choke. But Joe, sounds like you're doing well on 8 over there.
Yeah, it's been running, like I said, beautifully on 8. Just that initial startup was a little harsh, but since then it's haven't had any issues whatsoever, so it's been really nice.
Yeah, just do it, Fred. Just do it tonight. Go ahead and
do it tonight.
But yeah, so there's our quick brief, being that we're not talking about Windows 10 talk. It looks beautiful. Upgrade. Go ahead and do it and let us know in the comments below or hit us up on the hashtag. What do you think about Windows 10 too? And also, what do you guys think about some of the stuff we've been talking about, especially this OnePlus 2 and Moto X? I'd love to hear your comments. So either leave it on the socials, hashtag MCOJBrew, or leave a comment down below. Hit us somewhere on the event page or on the YouTube channel somewhere, because I want to know what you guys think. Are we right? Are we wrong? Let's argue. Let's keep the comments sweet, but don't do anything crazy. But I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. So if you're listening or watching, let us know what you think about some of these phones and some of the stuff and Windows experience and all that. But that does end up our show. So let's go ahead and do our plugs here, and I'll go left to right as I always do. Fred, what's coming up for you this week, bud?
More of the same. I'll be certainly carrying around the same N6 with Project Fi and have some updates on that. Hope to be spending some more time with the X8C and sharing some video with you guys. And what else? I got a stack of stuff here in the queue to review, which I'm starting to whittle away at, so look for some reviews on the site and hopefully some video reviews coming up.
Excellent, good stuff. And I want to jump to, I'll go ahead to the main man himself. Joe, you're next up. I got my thing in my ear, so go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, this weekend, not too much for the weekend, just working. But then this week, I've got plans to go to the zoo because that's always fun to do during the summer months. Going to the beach, going to see the Minions movie because the G4 wants to see it, so I'm gonna go see it. To G3. What else? That's about it this week. Just like Tony said, I've been still keeping myself doing Mobile Cup of Joe work, but when it's like 80 degrees and sunny out, it's so hard not to go outside. Just like go to the beach and go swimming and just be outside. I like making videos and editing and write articles and stuff, but that sun is so nice because in Michigan we get 3 months of it, and then as soon as September hits, we're screwed until May again. So got to take advantage of it while I can.
Yeah, really take advantage of both months of good weather. So very good.
Yeah, there you go.
Spec Sheet Tony, what's going on for you this week, bud?
Hopefully getting a lot more sun, hanging out at the pool and work as per usual. So and then I have a review of the Fitbit Surge, which will be coming. I'm sorry, the review will be coming. I already have the Fitbit Surge. So look for the review of the Fitbit Surge on the YouTube channel and hopefully a short write-up on the website as well. But that is what my son is 8 months now, by the way. So
wow.
Almost.
That's crazy.
2 new teeth coming in, so that'll be sick. Or 3 new teeth coming in. I can feel 2 of them. So. That'll be 6. He's already able to bite your finger almost clean off. So, but he's to the point. I don't want to take us too long over, but he's to the point where he's starting to get interested in more TV. Before he would only watch the one episode of Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. He didn't like any the other episodes we showed him, just the one episode. But now he's watched the Penguin movie with me a couple days in a row. I think my wife laughs at me because I think I get more of a kick out of it than he does. But he loves the very beginning when they're in Antarctica still. And then the part where they zoom out, if you've seen the movie, and they show the documentator's face, and he starts talking right before they push him off the cliff. Every time he sees that guy's face, even though he's telling them basically to murder these 3 penguins, he just perks right up and smiles at him. Just loves it. So he can't quite make it all the way through the movie, but he is starting to get to the point where he can focus on more than just the one show that he likes. So that's exciting. We took him to see the Minions movie, but it was a little bit too early for him to really care. But he was fine. He slept most of the time. So that's what's been going on for me.
Nice. Fun. Yes, the Penguins movie is a guilty pleasure of mine. I love it. I went to see it in the theaters, and I think I distracted.
I think it's better than Madagascar. I think it's better than Madagascar, and I really like Madagascar.
Definitely. Yeah, I distracted too many people. I never stopped laughing from the time it started to the time it was over. So yeah, there's a little guilty pleasure of mine. I love the Penguins in Madagascar. But what's going on for me? Tomorrow is my birthday. I am 2 hours away from my birthday.
That's right.
So that's why I'm in my fancy shirt, because I feel pretty in this, and I wanted to look nice for the show and feel pretty. So I don't know. But anyway, that's what's going on for me this week and all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, I'll try to pump out some other videos and stuff for the channel as well. Beard oils and a couple other tech review stuff too as well. So that's what's going on for me, the Bearded Barista, this week. But that does conclude our show, and just wanted to thank everybody for watching and listening and letting us be a part of your daily, weekly, monthly routine. But for Chuck, Greg, Fred, Tony, Joe, and myself, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you guys next week at 9 Eastern. Good night.